Thanks for the introduction. It's great to be here today. I'm very excited for the next 45 minutes. I'm happy that all of you guys can join me. Today what I'm going to do is I'm going to break down sort of my principles of starting any kind of training program. You know, we're going to be talking specifically about golf today, but really it's any training program as it leads to not only athletic development, but just performance on a functional day-to-day basis. You know, I think that's one of the things that a lot of people forget about is that the stuff you're doing in the gym needs to carry over to what you're doing, not only in your sport, but in your day-to-day life, because you can't get onto the golf course and expect things to change like this, you know, compared to what it was like before you got on the golf course. If you're standing around all day or sitting in school, sitting in college, studying for exams, sitting behind a desk, sitting behind a driver's seat in a car, or sitting on the range, you know, watching, if you guys are golf teachers out there and you're sitting all slouched over watching your students all day, you cannot expect yourself to be doing that day after day, week after week, and then expect 30 to 45 minutes in the gym 3 to 4 times a week to change everything that you've done for the last 10 to 15 years on a daily basis. So it's really important to understand what you're doing away from the course impacts what you're doing on the course. What you're doing at the gym should impact what you're doing away from the course and on the course, as well as keeping in mind what you're doing away from the course has a massive implication both in the gym and at the golf course. So that's going to be some of the big things we're going to look at today. What are we trying to train? What are the improvements we're trying to make, and how do we make them? So today we're going to break down this whole concept. This next 45 minutes we're really going to focus on 3 basic principles. The first one is you need to understand your body. So by that I mean, what are your limitations? What are your gifts? And by gifts I'm kind of alluding to what are the things you do better than most people do. So you got your limitations, your gifts, and what are the compensations that you've already got developed in your body, either good, which is very few, or bad, which is what we need to change. So as far as the limitation might be, basic limitation, you have a restricted external rotation, for example, at the shoulder. That can either be a joint limitation, a muscle limitation, or a motor pattern limitation. So it's good to figure out what is the reason to have that reduced external rotation. The compensation for that reduced mobility might be an increased lumbar spine rotation to adjust for the decreased external rotation. So the lumbar spine rotation isn't actually the original problem, although that's usually what shows up as being the injury factor, but it's a compensation for the reduced external rotation. Okay, so we've got that. The gifts are the things that certain people do that are just exceptional, and it happens as a result of just pure born with talent. You know, for example, I've worked with some players like Hunter Mahan is a great example of someone who has an unbelievable amount of external and internal rotation at the hip. Specifically for him, his gift is his internal rotation. So what happens, he's able to move into impact, exit really low. If you look at Hunter Mahan's exit point compared to most people, you know, really you're looking at him, you're looking at Tiger, Sung Yul No has the ability to exit low. These guys in Graham Dillette are exiting so low, and it's because they're able to maximize their rotation efficiency. But you can't just teach somebody to exit like that if they don't have the gift of huge internal rotation of the lead hip, because what's going to happen is their lower back is going to get blown out. So what are your gifts? What do you have that other people don't have? It's good to know that. And then once we know kind of our body, understand what's moving, what's not moving, what's fixable and what's not fixable, we then move into part 2. What are the patterns you're trying to train? Okay, and that's one of the things that most people completely skip when designing a training program, and if you're missing that, you're wasting your training time. Because let's remember, the purpose of being in the gym is not to get stronger in the gym. That's a byproduct of your training. The purpose of being in the gym is to get better at what it is you're training for. So for some of us, it's just to get better in our day-to-day lives. Some of us are trying to be excellent as a golfer, so you need to push your training to allow you to be exceptional at that. And the third part, you know, is really once you've decided what your motor patterns you're trying to train, it's how do you train them? What's the equipment you're going to use to train your motor patterns to be excellent? So we've got figure out your body. You have to understand how your body moves. The second part is what are the patterns that you want to now increase to make better or to completely abort and change. Okay, reboot your system. The third part is how are you going to do that? So unless we understand each of those segments, we're wasting our time in the gym. You're going to see when we get into the pattern training part of this, what most of us do in the gym does not help us on the golf course. So when you hear all these commentators on the Golf Channel or on some of the major networks talking about training causing injuries in the golfer, they're actually not that far off. And that's the reason for that is that most people are training incorrectly in the gym. You're making your body weaker. You might get stronger at the exercises you're doing, but your body is actually getting weaker as a functional system. So that will lead to injury, and that happens in any sport. It's not specific to golf. Most people train completely inappropriate for day-to-day patterns. And we're going to talk about that and show you kind of how you get around that. But what we're going to see is during this 45-minute lecture, unfortunately we can't interact, but we will interact at the end when I'm available for 10, 15, 20 minutes online, though. Okay, so now we're starting our assessment of our individual bodies. I'm going to take you through 4 or 5 assessment procedures. This is not at all meant to be a full discovery of our bodies. Obviously that would take hours to do. But what I'm going to do is just give you the ability to check it out on yourselves, see how some of these areas are moving. So we're going to look at shoulder rotation. We're going to look at really basic neck rotation. It's the simplest thing to check, and no one does it. Thoracic spine rotation. We're going to look at hip rotation. And, depending on the time, we might get into the foot and ankle. So what I'm doing, I'm filming this here. As you can see, I've got my garage in the background. The reason I'm filming here specifically as opposed to a gym or a fancy club is I want to be able to use equipment that any of you guys can use anywhere you guys are at in the world. A lot of you guys are going to be traveling, whether you're a business person, a golf teacher, a young player, or someone who really wants to work on their game and perform better. You're going to be moving from place to place. You're going to have very different equipment depending on where you're going. And if you're lucky enough to be able to stay at home and work in the same place over and over again, the equipment that we have in our garage here today, the garage gym, you're going to be able to use wherever you are. Okay? So be aware of that. We are shooting here specifically to give you the ability to use whatever we're doing today at home in your own world. So first test we're going to look at is the shoulder rotation. Now, everyone's probably done your basic external rotation of your shoulder. A lot of people call it the 90-90 test or whatnot, and they think you're looking specifically at the joint connecting your arm or your humerus to your shoulder blade. The part of the shoulder blade you're connecting to, or your scapula, is called the glenoid. So it's called your GH joint, glenoid to your humerus. So most people think you're looking at pure GH rotation. Well, that's not necessarily true, because what you're actually looking at is how much extension do you have through your spine and your rib cage and rotation through those ribs. How much positioning ability do you have of that shoulder blade to put that glenoid specific aspect of the shoulder blade in a position that's ideal for your shoulder then to rotate on. I'm going to go back and show you how an improper shoulder location will really change how much shoulder rotation it appears as if you have. Okay? So if you just look from the side, don't do this yet. I'll give you guys a chance in a second to do this. If I'm standing on the side and I purely rotate my shoulder back, I'm now looking at external rotation of my GH joint. Again, we also have to realize we have all those other implications with the spine, the rib cage, and the scapular positioning to deal with. But realistically, we're kind of just looking at general GH positioning. So everyone does that test. Everyone's like, oh, great, I get past, here's 90 degrees. I'm past 90 degrees. A lot of you will cheat, extend your back, or do like this kind of stuff to get it further. But really, we're not trying to cheat anybody. It's no ego testing here, guys. Let's just take a look, see how much we have. So stand pretty tall, just purely rotate it back, okay? So we're looking at GH joint rotation. So now what we're going to do, we're going to get down into our golf posture, okay? And we're going to rotate. We're going to check out how much actual external rotation we have now that we're in our golf posture and rotated. So I'm going to turn myself away a little bit from the camera because I'm going to have to rotate into the camera view. So if I'm standing here, get into my good golf posture, arms up, okay, I'm going to rotate. So I'm getting a full thoracic spine rotation, and I'm rotating my arm back. Okay, so for a lot of us, all of a sudden, if you look, here's my arm, it's past the 90 degrees. A lot of you guys are going to be in this position here. You're going to be in this position here, and then wondering why in your golf swing do you have problems either coming from the inside to make contact with the ball, or why am I constantly leaning back? Okay, that's even at the PGA Tour level, I have a lot of my clients, when I first start working with them, talk to me about swing faults, is how when they're moving to the left side, they get so far, but then they stop rotating and they hang back. then you talk to them about what they're working on. They're trying to work on coming more from the inside, or they're doing whatever else, but they haven't looked at the fact that their shoulder does not rotate. So if I'm coming down and I'm coming into the ball and I'm rotating, if my arm does not have the ability to get in that position, but is instead in this position, the only way I can attack the ball from the inside now is to stop rotating and lean back. And now I've created an angle of attack that allows me to get into the position that I'm trying to do. But obviously that creates a lot of other issues. So everyone will stand up and be like, okay, I've got great external rotation. Okay, you have great rotation, but now when you get in your golf posture and you rotate, your posture, your thoracic spine posture gets worse, and now you've gone from having this much rotation to being here. So you're not actually, in theory, meant to work on your GH rotation. You need to work on the muscles, the joints in your spine, in your rib cage, and how the shoulder articulation, how that shoulder blade moves. So for example, this is the easiest way for me to show you. If I'm standing here, I'm in a good posture, my blade is sort of back in this position. Here's my rotation. You can see it's pretty solid. Now, if I get into bad posture, my blade moves this way, okay? Slouched posture. We have a lot of athletes that we all work with that are in that slouched posture from, typing all day or being on their computer. If that shoulder blade comes into this posture, watch the difference here. So initially, I'm going to show you again, good posture, standing up, rotating. Now I put my shoulder blade forward. That's the only difference I'm doing. That's all I've got. I cannot go any further back than that. If I set my blade down, now I can rotate. Okay? So I haven't actually changed how much rotation is at my actual GH joint. I've just changed the positioning of the blade, and now relatively it appears as if I have less or more GH external rotation. So at home, okay, now everybody stand up at your computers. All I want you to do is stand tall, elbows up, let's just rotate. How much do you have in that standing posture? Where are you compared to 90? Ideally, without having any limitations in your golf swing, as a general rule, I'd like to see about 120 degrees. Okay, that's 120 degrees without going into that extension. Now, if you do have that 120 degrees, or maybe you have 100 degrees or 80 degrees, how much of it now changes when you get in your golf posture, you rotate, and now you get into here. And what we're looking at when we're comparing the degrees, remember, if I'm standing, I'm comparing my rotation compared to my spine. So if I'm in this posture right now, my spine is on that angle. So that would be 90 degrees. That would be past 90 degrees. Now you add the rotation to it. Okay? So now we can also have a bit of an idea how much is our extra rotation in good standing posture for those who have good posture, and how much is the rotation when you're in more of your golf posture. You can go 1, golf posture, 2, how does it compare to my spine, and then add the rotation element to it and see where you're at. So that's your basic external rotation. Now we're going to go into thoracic spine rotation, and you're going to have to bear with me here. I'm just going to set something up here on the floor. So just keep the camera running there at the same angle, and I'm just going to move some mats down here. Okay, so what we're looking at, I'm going to go head on with you here. Now what's really important when you're thinking about thoracic spine, the thoracic spine is actually anatomically developed for the joints to allow for rotation, okay? For people who don't actually work on their rotation, you take the average population, they found that they have about 40 degrees of rotation to each direction, to the right, 40 degrees to the left. Most of the golfers that I work with have anywhere from 60 to 100 degrees, okay, of actual rotation in either way. If you look at the lumbar spine, it only has 5 degrees of rotation combined in all the segments. So there's 5 segments in the lumbar spine, about 1 degree per segment. Unfortunately, most of us, because of the bad posture, we lose our thoracic spine rotation. We end up getting it in our lumbar spine. So what we want to do, we want to check how much do we actually have. Again, these are gross tests meant for you to be able to do at home just to get an appreciation of your body. So we're going to do very basic. We're going to do 2 movements, one of them with the arm an external rotation, one of them with the arm an internal rotation. We're still in both those movements, we're going to be doing rotation through the thoracic spine. We want to see how does it change when we position our arm in a different place. So the first one, we're going to get ourselves, I'll show you from the side first. We're going to get here, and our butt is going to be on our heels. You'll see a lot of people doing this test up in this position. And the reason I don't like that is because now your lumbar spine is able to move. We want to take advantage of our hip flexor, our psoas muscle, iliacus and psoas, get ourselves on our heels. By flexing at the hip, you actually lock out the lumbar spine as a result of that psoas attachment from the hip, the femur, up into the lumbar spine. So, we're on our heels, our lumbar spine is locked out. Now we're really getting a good idea how much does our thoracic spine move. So the first one, we're going to check internal rotation. Okay, so I'm going to go arm under on my lower back, the other arm, forearm is down. Okay? And I want you to do this test and let your head move in the direction that you're rotating. So I'm starting here, and I'm going to rotate up. So you just kind of get an idea on your elbow, how far is your elbow and your shoulder moving? Okay? And you're just trying to rotate up towards the ceiling, or up, for me, I'm outside right now, so up towards the clouds. Just get a good feel. You can do that 3 to 5 times, and this is actually one of the exercises I'll use for those people who are lacking in rotation of the thoracic spine. I'll get them to do this 5, 6, 7 times and holding it. Okay, so just a little rotation. How do you have it? Some of you guys might find as you do this, you're kind of getting to here and you're getting stuck. And some of you might be able to just really rotate it back and feel free and open. So from the front view, again, I'm going to get down here. I'll just do my other arm. Arms on my lower back, elbows down, forearms on the ground, my butt is on my heels, and I'm just going to rotate. Just get a few rotations, have a feel for where my shoulder is rotating to. Some might stop here, some might be able to turn it all the way up. So that's checking how much thoracic spine rotation I have, available with a little bit of internal rotation. Now I'm going to go external rotation up in this position. Now we just checked shoulder external rotation. Some of you guys might have had great range of motion. But what you'll find, a lot of those people will now get into this position, and now their thoracic spine rotation is going to be a lot less in the external rotated position than it was in the internal rotated. So here we go. We're going to go back down. It's almost the exact same maneuver. I'll go from the side again first. So I'm sitting on my heels, put my hand on the back of my neck, right forearm's on the ground, and I'm just going to rotate towards the ceiling. Again, this can be used as a mobilization technique, like an actual exercise, but it's also a test. You're just kind of looking, where does my elbow point, towards the ceiling? Is it off at an angle? So from the front, again, I'll do my right hand now, hands behind my back and kind of in between my shoulder blades, and it's going to rotate it up. So remember, this is 2 parts. First one, the arm is on the lower back. That's the internal rotation of the shoulder. Second one, my arm's up here. That's external rotation of my shoulder. Both of them are still doing thoracic spine rotation and extension, okay? Now, how many of you at home, when you do the first test, come up and you look great, good rotation, shoulders getting high, feels good. The second one, you come and you're like this, okay? So you did the first test, so we know you have rotation available in your thoracic spine, for those that did. But all of a sudden you do the second part of the test and your rotations really drop down. So why is that? Well, the reason is your shoulder blade is not articulating effectively with the back of the thoracic spine and the rib cage. So what happens, that's going to be giving you a good indication that when you do try to do external rotation, either in your golf swing, in the gym, or any other movement that you're doing, you're going to have a compromise between the spine, thoracic spine, rib cage, and shoulder blade and glenohumeral joint. So if you isolate each of those on its own, you might find that you have good GH movement, your shoulder blade kind of moves okay, and you have great thoracic spine rotation. When you couple them all together, they have to work as a functional unit. All of a sudden, you've lost the ability to control the musculature with the nervous system, and you've locked down all your movement. So if you're finding you're like that, that now gives you a little bell ringing for how you would train at home or at the gym. You wouldn't just go automatically into going huge weights, moving it around through gross motions. You need to figure out how do you adapt your motor patterns for your shoulder blade to start moving well. Okay? So the next one I want to go and take a look at is your basic neck range of motion. This is the easiest one to do, and almost nobody does it. It makes no sense to me why you would not check this range of motion out before you do a golf lesson. Okay? How many of us have our clients standing there, okay, let's take a look, get you up in some golf posture, and you take a look how much you're rotating back, how much you're rotating through, you notice that, oh, in the backswing you're a little limited. I need you to rotate a little bit more. You need to check this. And you haven't checked how far the neck moves. Well, the neck's going to be a major block. The less the head moves off the ball, the more the neck is forced to move. So, for example, if I'm just down in this position and I'm looking straight ahead, okay? That's my zero position, rotating this way, rotating this way. How far are you rotating? I'm gonna position myself looking this direction and rotate towards the camera. So if I rotate to my right towards the camera, and you look at where my chin is compared to my shoulder, and it's pretty much about 90 degrees, okay? Now a lot of times you'll check people, especially as we get older, but not necessarily exclusive to those that are older. A lot of us who are a little younger have this issue. As you rotate, they're gonna get to here. Or they'll rotate and they'll go like this. And their chin is pointing much ahead of where the shoulder is. So they're not getting anywhere near 90 degrees. So if you can't just rotate your head to 90 degrees, okay, you should never expect that you're able to move through a full 90-degree rotation of your thoracic spine without the head moving. It just doesn't make sense. They are the same concept. So I'm going to stand up now and take a little look. So as you come up, okay, so now if I'm here, I got 90 degrees. This, or 90 degrees this way. This position here is the exact same as if I'm looking at the ball and I've rotated through here. There's no difference. I've just unwound my thoracic spine. Wham. Okay? So if I can't do this, there's no way that I can do this. So that's something that we need to assess. How much rotation we have in our neck. Some of us have huge rotation. Sean O'Hara back in the day used to have a ton of rotation. And that was one of the reasons he could get away as he was moving through the ball. The arms would extend down the line for quite a long way post-impact, and he still would have the range of motion to be able to get away with that in the neck. Now, unfortunately, as we get older, slowly we start to lose some of that range, and we start getting affected in our golf swing. We're going to take a couple seconds here. You know, as we said, we're doing this 45-minute live action. We got a little bit of stuff going on here in my backyard, in my front area. We got some people cutting grass not too far from us. So bear with me when you hear some of these lawnmowers. It is what it is, right? So we've gone through, we've looked at shoulder rotation, we've looked at neck rotation, and we've looked at thoracic spine rotation. The next one we're going to take a look at is just your hips. Okay, so for me, I've got pretty good shoulder movement, I've got pretty good thoracic spine movement, and pretty good neck movement. Here's where you're going to see some of my limitations set up, and where I need to start addressing them in some of my training programs, or how I change my training programs to fit the body that I have. Okay, I'll explain some of that part of it in part 2 and 3. Again, we're still in part 1 of this. So if you look at the hips, I come down here. Again, this is just basic testing so you can see at home some basic stuff. Obviously, I would definitely recommend doing these kind of movements with someone who's been trained to assess your body. I'm just trying to give you some basics. Okay, so if I bring my knee straight above my hip, we'll call that 0 degrees. Okay, so we're checking my right hip right now. As I rotate my foot, keeping this knee here, how much rotation do I get at that hip? So I'm getting pretty close to 90 degrees going in that way. Okay, I've got about 80. If I do it this way so you can see, you know, I'm about, you know, perpendicular guys now. Here, if I rotate it, I don't get quite 90, but I get pretty good rotation. So my gift is I have a good amount of extra rotation at my hip joint. My problem, though, is my internal rotation is very limited. So if you look again, here's 0. If I move this out, if I do it actively, you know, I'm only getting about 20 degrees of internal rotation. I'm not getting a ton. Okay? If I do it from this way, again, if you're looking at 90, if I'm going here, I'm not getting anywhere near that. I'm not getting 45 degrees. I'm just getting about 20. So what does that mean? One, in the golf swing, that has a huge implication because now, as I'm going through impact, I don't have to worry about my right side being limited, moving through external rotation and abduction. I'm going to have the range there. What I am worried about is I'm coming into impact, and through impact, what does my left hip do? And it's not going to have the range, because my left hip and my right hip are very similar. So I'm not going to have the proper range of motion, that left hip to drive through hard and keep rotating to my target. Okay, so we're going to move into part 2 of this segment. I got through the shoulder, got through the neck, thoracic spine and hip. We're going to skip the feet. I'm already 20 minutes in, and I tend to be late on everything, so I'm just going to skip the feet because otherwise we'll be done the program, and I haven't got the parts 2 and 3, which to me is the most important part. The assessment part of what we just did, honestly, is just to show you some areas where you're going to be better and some areas you're going to be worse compared to your peers. So your training program should not match your peers. That's the whole point of that last segment. So now we're going to, part 2 is looking at what patterns are you trying to ingrain, and I think that's something that a lot of people really don't think about when they look at developing their training program. And how do you develop a training program without understanding what it is that you're trying to train? So I want you guys all to think for a second, what is the most common pairing of your arms and legs? So when your right arm is moving, what is your left leg doing? Okay, I'm not going to give you the answer for a second. I want you to think about it. If you're walking around, if you're jogging, if you're throwing a ball, doing whatever, for the most part, what are your arms doing? What is your right arm doing compared to your left arm? What's your right arm doing compared to your left leg? Okay, so throwing a ball, throw a javelin, do a jump shot, run. What's happening? What's my right arm doing? What's my left arm doing? You should answer they're doing opposites. Okay? For the most part, if I'm running, as my right arm's moving forward, my left arm's driving back. Right? If I'm going to throw a ball, my left arm's pulling in and my right arm's coming through. So that's almost everything. Almost no activity that you're going to do in the real world has both arms moving at the same time. It just doesn't happen. Or sorry, in the same direction at the same time. They do move at the same time, but they're usually moving in opposite directions. Now think about what most people do in the gym. Most people have both arms moving in the same direction at the same time. They're doing a chest press. They're doing a pull down. They're doing, squats with both legs attached to the ground, squatting up and down. They are doing pull downs, bicep curls. They're always doing the things at the same time in the same direction. Really how we should be training for not everything, but almost everything, is one arm's pulling, one arm's pushing. Okay? If we're doing that in real life, why are we not doing it at home? Now I'm going to stand up again here, and I'm going to show you a couple things, just something basic to think about in the golf swing. Okay. So, a lot of people have told me, well, my arms are both moving in the same direction in my golf swing. They're starting here, and they're going this way. 100% couldn't agree more. They are doing the same movement as far as pattern-wise in direction. But what you don't realize, unless you think about it, this left arm is pulling, and this right arm is pushing. So, pull, push. Okay? So yes, they're moving the same way, but they're not both pushing. They're not both pulling. From here, from this position, my left arm is pulling down, my right arm is pushing down. From here, I'm pulling through, pushing through. So they're still doing opposite patterns. Okay? So that's important. People need to realize that. One of the reasons that there's such poor carryover from the gym to real world, not just golf, training activities in general. If I'm going to go play soccer, if I'm going to play football, baseball, basketball, why is the carryover so poor? It's because we're training the wrong patterns. We're actually making our body worse. Okay, that's why there's so many injuries. Let's train better. Let's train smarter. Let's think about why are we training? How do we train that pattern? So a lot of stuff I'm going to take you through here in the next, finish this part up. And in the next pattern, next part of the series is looking at the reason we're training and then using the equipment in a way that allows us to train that pattern. So again, most of the stuff we're going to do, and most stuff that I do, does not have both arms doing the same thing. I very seldom have my guys do pushing movements with both arms moving the same. I'll have them do pull-ups once in a while, because let's be honest, if you're in a pool, you're pulling up, you're pushing, it's almost like doing a muscle up. So there is certain carryovers, but for the most part, we don't go that direction. The other reason it's not a good thing. Now let's think, if I'm holding onto a bar, okay? I'm holding the bar, I'm doing a bench. So here's my bar, it's going this way. I'm attached to this bar. Now I can't move my hands this way from each other, okay? So I can't do this. I can't move them closer or further apart, they're locked in. So as I lower this bar, I'm going to have a little bit of give with my elbow, a little bit of my shoulder, and I have a little bit in the wrist, then it's going to stop. I have no more give because my hands are stuck at equal distance from each other and equal displacement. At the finish move, it's going to be that to get the bar to the bottom. My shoulder is going to move forward. So how many times do you see guys get off the bench press and they're rubbing the shoulder as if they got a good burn? That's not a good burn. That's wearing your cuff out. You're actually breaking down your body. Okay? Same thing happens when guys do repetitive push-ups, repetitive pull-ups. They're wearing their body down. We need to train smart. We need to train patterns that are actually functionally going to occur in real life and in our sport. So today we're talking about golf. So we're going to talk about some of the golf mechanics. The other thing is most of us is sat at our computers, at our desks, not interested in school. So we're slouched in school, sitting in cars. We might have some good beats on. We're leaning back. All that leads to bad posture. Okay? So we need to correct that posture, as we already talked about a little bit with that the position of the thoracic spine, allowing the proper position of the shoulder blade, allowing the proper rotation of the shoulder joint. We need to think about that for all our movements. So what is our posture? Don't just do lunges. Don't just like drop into a lunge and pop up. What happened to that knee? What happened to the pelvis? Did it open? Are you trying to open it? We need to think, what are the patterns we're ingraining? Once you can empower yourself by understanding why you're doing certain movements, you can then move forward, capture those movements, do them properly, excel at them, and have a good carryover from your training sessions into the course. And I talked about it a little bit earlier in this segment. I said, improper training leads to injuries. This is completely true. I totally believe it. Quality training really brings down your injury rate. The injury prevalence on the PGA Tour, the guys who I think train properly with the good trainers, doing their good stuff, with a lot of the TourCouncil.com members, is negligible. They almost never get hurt. And the reason is, even though they're doing the same high-impact sport that everybody else is doing, all their peers are doing, they're trained to let their bodies absorb that force better, and they're training in a way that's going to prevent injuries. So we're going to move into part 3 now. I just wanted to talk a little basic about movement patterns. We're going to move into how do we actually incorporate those patterns into our training. So one of the things we're going to do is we're going to use initially, we're going to use some tubing. I'm going to show you some tubing movements. Some of them are just going to use one. Some are going to do two. So we got here, we got some power bands. You can get these both at golfgym.com and also Joey D Golf. They both have great sets of bands. Got some Superflex bands that you can get at superflexfitness.com, I believe. I'm going to use both of them. I'm going to show you that you don't actually have to have the same handle, the same tubing, and bands to do a great workout. I like both of these pieces of equipment because I can travel with these anywhere in the world, pack my bags, pack my carry-on, and have no issues. Okay, so we're going to be using these. We are going to use a ball. I'm going to show you some ball movements, and I'm going to show you some very basic exercises with our body weight. Okay, it's really important to know body weight exercises. So let's take a quick look here at what I'm going to call as bear crawls. But just give me a second. Got to get this set up, move this out of the way. We're going to do some bear crawls across the driveway. Okay, interesting entrance, I know. Reason I went with that is my bear crawls. Okay, they're one of my favorite exercises to do. One, you can't cheat it. You either do it right or you do it wrong. Okay, we're going to take you guys all through them in a second at home. The most important part is this is a great exercise, the bear crawl, to incorporate what I call your fundamental patterns. You know, I got a series at TourCouncil.com called the Fundamental Series, if you look under the fitness section. And what it does, it takes you right from the beginning stages of movement and takes you into where you're a functional human being. So the way I break it down is you got your vestibular system working, which is part of what creates your balance, your hearing, inner ear mechanism. That actually is, the vestibular system is what sets all of your musculature in your system initially into firing against gravity. Okay, so we got your vestibular system. Then I go to reptile series, which teaches you your basic patterns on the ground. Mammal series, which is your quadruped series, into your primate, which is kind of getting into deadlifts, some Turkish get-ups, learning how to do those movements properly, and then finally getting into full functional human phases where we're getting into squatting, running, etc. So bear crawls are part of that pattern, part of that series, and the reason I find them so important and so exceptional at developing this cross-crawl pattern, or opposite arm, opposite leg pattern, is that you can't cheat it. When you're walking, we have all these bad things built into our system, so it's hard to get it out. It's hard to tell someone, I want you to walk differently. Okay, it's very difficult to do that. But with bear crawls, you have to do it. And what will happen for a lot of us when we try them in a second at home is you're going to find that You'll do like 1 or 2 of them initially, no problem. And then all of a sudden what will happen is you'll start doing them with the right hand moving at the same time as the right leg. Well, that's not opposite arm, opposite leg. That's same side. Okay, so it's a really easy way of learning. Am I doing this right or am I not doing it right? So I'm going to back up here a little bit. I would advise learning the forward bear crawl first. Don't get into the back bear crawl. It's a much more difficult exercise. It's harder to time. If you can do the forward bear crawl properly and quite well, then you can give the backward bear crawl a try. But here we go. I'm just going to back up here a little bit for you. So what you're going to do, you're going to say, let's start with our left hand close to our left foot. Okay, that means the right hand has to be slightly in front. Now the key, when I say slightly, if this is my left hand, that's my right hand. It's not here. That is really hard to move against. So left hand down, it's close to my left foot, right hand forward, right leg is back. Okay? So from here, what you're going to do is you're going to plant into my right hand, that's going to be my supporting arm, and I'm going to push off my right leg at the same time I move my left hand. So it's there. They should land at the same time. It shouldn't be like that. It should be same time. Your head is looking slightly in front of you. It's not fully extended. Okay? It's looking slightly in front, and your arms are moving opposite of each other. What most of you will find is, one, your patterns are probably not great. Your butt's up in the air. You end up doing right hand, right leg at the same time, or you find it difficult to get them planting at the same time. Okay? The reason that I'm using the bear crawls with you today, like I said, it's a great reboot to get things moving properly, but it's also a really good way of seeing how good are your cross crawl patterns. If you can smoke through bear crawls and you can do 60 yards straight, 60 meters straight without having a problem, the hands are always matched with the right arm, right leg pattern, you're good to go. You can start moving into more advanced movements. But if you struggle with the bear crawl, either because you find it physically exhausting or your pattern isn't very good, then you need to go a little bit further back in your programming and start with the more elementary or fundamental patterns, like your rolling patterns, like your basic cross crawl patterns, reptile series. So again, you can find all that stuff at tourcounselor.com under the fitness section, under my fundamental series. But that is your movement pattern for your bear crawl. Again, opposite arm, opposite leg. That's the pattern we're going to try to ingrain a little bit more today. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to look at bands. How can bands help us develop these patterns? Okay? So what you're going to see, I got this attachment point right here. I'm going to use this. Most of us can find the bottom of a doorway. Most of us can find something to attach to. I'm going to just pop out for a sec here, pop back in. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to attach to this band around the bottom of my stock here. Loop them through. Okay, so I got both handles going through this. That secures it. Now most set of bands, especially these ones at Joey D Golf or Golf Gym, have this actual door anchor, and a lot of bands come like that. The reason I like this series of bands is that both handles act independent of the other one. So as I pull on the one side, it doesn't affect the other, which is really important if I'm trying to develop some really good patterns. So I'm just going to fold these mats up. I'm going to be facing it over here into this direction. What you're going to see, I'm going to be doing a traditional chest pressing type movement, but I don't really believe in singling out a certain muscle group or just an arm to do an exercise. So like, for example, if my guys are ever asked how many days a week do they do legs? Well, they do legs every time they train because the legs are part of every movement. So if I take this band, a normal chest press movement, if you come on up towards me, a normal chest movement would be this, right? That's not really that functional. So what I got this tubing attached down low. I'm going to grab it in my right hand, bring it up towards my right shoulder. It's important to have it starting at your shoulder, almost like a punch or a shot put, because if it's away from your body, you're going to get into this position that's damaging to the shoulder. So how am I going to develop a cross crawl pattern with this? Well, I'm going to have my tubing here. I'm going to load into my hip, very similar to what I want to do in the golf swing. Load in so I can push off. So I'm going to load into my back, my trail side hip. My left arm is going to be up. So now what's going to happen, I'm looking in this direction. This arm, I'm going to drive off my leg. I'm going to punch through with my right hand while I pull with my left hand. So it's that cross crawl, push, pull. Push and pull. And here's how it looks. I'll go slow-mo first and then crank it out. Right here, right hand, you're going to drive and push. Bringing it back, drive and push. So my right hand is pushing through, my left hand is pulling. So a push and a pull. So here we go. Show you 8 reps right here. Driving off my legs. Wham. Legs start the movement, arms finish. It's a good way to get your core working. So instead of just doing a regular chest, now I can put some heavy resistance on this. Really get in and just drive down. Or I can use a little lighter resistance for a warm-up. But I'm still incorporating that push-pull pattern. I'm driving my legs with my arms. Okay, I'm not in isolation. So it's a great way of using bands to start working on your cross-crawl pattern work. Now, let's just say I wanted to do 2 bands. So hold with me for a second. So I'm going to use, instead of using 2 of the same, like I said, I'm going to use super flex bands. All right, I'm back in here. Super flex bands, I'm going to grab here, circle it around so I got a good grip on it. So now I'm going to be working both sides. I'm going to be pulling with this arm, punching with this arm. So we're set up, and you're going to pull, driving off my right side. Ooh. So now I'm really working all my fascial chains, my slings as they go diagonally across my body. I'm pulling hard with this side, ripping through with the other. But the nice thing about doing it in this kind of pattern, I'm using my legs in combination with my arms versus just on a ball. You know, ball works great too. As I'm going to show you in 1 second, I'm actually going to do another chest exercise, chest dominant exercise to show you the rotation of the thoracic spine, moving the shoulder blade, positioning the arm. Let me jump into that one right now. I know I'm running out of time here. All right, I got my ball. Let's get a weight. Let's not get crazy here. Okay, so how do I do cross-crawl patterns while doing a chest-based exercise program? Okay, well here's how we do it. Let's start off on our back. Weight is in this position, arms up in the air. Glutes are engaged. I'm going to use my glutes to start this movement. I'm going to rotate. Start with my left hand up, drive. Left arm's pulling, right arm's pushing. But my glutes are working in this movement too to help me control the movement. So from the side view, just to get a feel for it. So right arm's down, left arm's up. This arm's going to drive into the ball. Arm finishes above my shoulder. From the other side, so you can see what my left arm's doing, and really getting that pull. The whole key to this exercise is actually the arm without the weight in it, the left side. Right side's getting the good chest workout, but my glutes, my core, my left arm, drive. The left arm is what creates the rotation and lets me punch it up. So, why is the left arm important there? It drives into the ball. The driving, that pull, creates the rotation of my thoracic spine to position my shoulder blade in the place where it needs to be for my arm to now stack up. If I don't create that rotation, I just push straight up, I'm going to get myself in a little bit of an impingement situation over time, wear and tear. So now I've gone from an exercise, I only have 45 pounds on the weight right there. Go for an exercise, 45 pounds, normally you can rep that out, it's not a big deal. You start adding the rotation into it, your whole body's working. Not only are you getting more out of the weights you have, but you're also creating an environment that leads to better patterns, better core function. My feet are engaged, glutes are engaged, core's engaged, shoulders engaged. So that's how I would use my ball, my dumbbells. We got some bands, some body weight exercises, start incorporating those cross crawl patterns. I'm going to finish up here in a second, just showing you how to use a little bit of some basic golf exercises to incorporate your basic golf patterns. So you're going to have to come with me into the gym, into the dark side. It's going to get a little shaky, but we're coming in. All right, so I know it's dark, okay, but bear with me here. This is important because just think of this as tubing attached to the bottom of the doorway. Okay, you got some different patterns. I got a rope. Again, I want to work on pull push. Golf swing. Coming in, you got your pull and your push. A lot of people lose the ability to generate speed, one, because they can't decelerate, but two, they forget to accelerate through the ball. So this is a great way of teaching that. Right hand's on the handle, left hand's on. This is my grip. Foot is going to open up. Left hand is down, and I'm going to drive off my legs onto my left side, drive the hips up, and as I do that, I'm going to pull. Once my arm passes my knee, I'm going to fold it and drive my right through. Again, pull and then push. Cross crawl. Right here, drive through. So you can see what's happening. This arm's starting straight. This one's bent. This is going to finish. This one's bent. That one's straight. From here, getting in good posture, drive it up. Okay? Once you do these kind of exercises, now we start to learn the carryover from the gym into our training, into real life, into our golf sessions. This is not the same as doing these little you like my back? These tricep pull downs. Everyone's favorite. You know, cranking out your bicep curls. Chest press. Okay, we're going to get a little bit, you know, very local, isolated activity, but we're not developing the patterns of loading into the hip, creating internal rotation of this back hip, drive it off, internal rotation here, squeezing the glutes, hip extension while we're doing a chest movement. Right? So we're doing, in theory, a push movement here while involving the pull and all the leg actions, all the leg drives. So I hope you can see that you can do a lot of things in the gym that actually carry over into your golf swing, into your everyday life, but you have to know the reason you're doing them. I can only give you a couple exercises today. Obviously, there's so much more you could do. There's a few, we gave you a couple exercises to do some basic body awareness, find out where your strengths and weaknesses are as far as movement quality is. I hope you got a better idea of trying to understand what it is from a movement pattern standpoint, what you're trying to achieve in the gym to help you outside. Because just because my bench got to 400 pounds doesn't mean I'm going to hit the ball any further. In fact, most people who would do that don't. Okay? I will be available for questions when we're done here for 15 to 20 minutes. Look forward to chatting with you guys. I hope you appreciated it. This is my gym at my house. Can do whatever I need to do here. I hope you guys learn to do the same at yours.